Hello, we are live with Alexandra, and you guys know Tiffany and Amber. I'll give it to
Hi.
Tiffany to say a few words, and then Amber.
Um, I just want everybody to hear this story. Um, it's a very heartbreaking story, and it's an unnecessary story. And if everybody did the work that this woman is going to tell you about her story did, I think a lot more people would have better outcomes. And that's all I'm going to say at the moment. Go ahead, Amber. Hi, Amber.
Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Spanny. I mean, even just looking at this, I like, how do I say this? You are like a freaking badass person, Alexandria.
Thank
I
you.
like your courage to even keep fighting is an inspiration. I mean, just looking at
Thank
some of
you.
this stuff, I just I wish more people would take the time to do some of the things that you did, because it was smart, and I know this is
Thank
hard
you.
for you, but you're badass.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You want me to?
All right, Alexandria.
Okay,
Floor is
Alexandra,
yours.
it's your turn. So start at the
Um,
beginning.
I ended up in South Bend October the 1st. I had a charge in another county, so I fled to South Bend to get some housing because I was due for my child. And so I ended up in the YWCA and I did all my OB appointments and things like that. So um, I was induced November the 11th of 2021 at Memorial Hospital here in South Bend, Indiana, and I didn't have him until November the 12th at 10:25 in the morning. They had said that I was not very dilated, but it was stressing my son's heart rate out, heartbeat. So I had to take, we had to do an emergency cesarean. So he was born 7 pounds 2 ounces. Through a C-section at 10:25. Later that evening, my family had came to visit. They were told that there were no concerns. Breastfeeding was going well. He was adapting very well. And then they came back the 13th, same thing. But I was having a lot of trouble in the hospital. The first couple of days, I was itching really bad because of the effect of the drugs. It was hard for me to sleep. My nipples were inverted, so it was very difficult to breastfeed. I was extremely emotional, and I viewed him as a porcelain doll. Like I was really scared to hold him. I thought I was going to break him. I would ask questions because I was completely new. And so my family came back to the hospital Saturday, November the 13th of 2021. They had brought a pack and play, car seat, clothes, bottles, everything that he could possibly need at that time. Again, they were told that breastfeeding was going well, everything was fine, and that there was no need to come back because I was going to be discharged November the 14th on Sunday. So they didn't come back. Um, the 14th, it was the same thing. I was still struggling a lot, asking for a lot of assistance. I couldn't sleep. I was severely itchy. I was crying. And the charge nurse, Lisa, had stated that if I couldn't take care of him and I kept asking for too much help, I was not going to leave the hospital. She was very, very mean to me. I would ask to keep my breasts out so it'd be easier for me to move. I was only shown like two positions of breastfeeding him, which was the football position and some like other position, but I didn't know too much. And I spoke to a social worker Sunday. Her name was Carissa Tinky, and she had I kind of talked to her about my journey with pregnancy and how much I loved him and how I wanted to get help and things like that. She had wrote me a scan referral and she gave me some extra baby clothes. So from what I knew, everything was fine. However, November 15th, Bridget Putney, she was another social worker. She had spoke with me and she had asked me if she had noticed that I said I had considered adoption and had asked me if that was still an option. And I said no. That was in the beginning of my pregnancy. She had finished asking me questions about if I had DCS involvement as a child, the charges in Elkhart and things like that. Then she proceeded to call DCS on me. I had a DCS worker by the name of Casey Shosholka come in and speak with me. and she asked me to confirm the information. I had told the caseworkers about my charges in another county, the adoption situation, my family members, if she had advised me to get guardianship papers completed, things like that. Then she had said that I either had the option of being charged with neglect of a dependent or to do a case plan. And I said I would do the case plan. And she told me that to call somebody from the Y to schedule a meeting for us to meet, and that I was to stay in the hospital and to not ask for any assistance the entire night. And I was to take care of him independently. And she would pick me up and take me to the Y to do the safety plan. I had told my family that, told my friend, and my friend Michelle had said that you need to get out of there. They're going to take him. So that did not help. I panicked. I had explained to them that I wanted to leave the hospital, and they said, "You cannot leave. You're leaving against medical advice." The social worker, Bridget, had called Casey Shoshoka and had stated, like, look, if there's no medical reason to keep her, she could leave tonight. Casey Shoshoka calls me and says, "Why do you want to leave?" I'm like, "Well, I don't want to be here. I just want to go back. I'm not comfortable." "Well, you don't want to get a circumcision?" "No." I had told them at the time it was just because I wanted some more information and I didn't want to do that to my baby. She was like, "Well, you can leave. Nothing's holding you here, but it would look more better for you if you, stayed and just did what we asked you to do." I stayed. I got his circumcision, signed the consent to do it, and I didn't ask them for any other assistance for the rest of the night. Doctored his wounds, did everything they asked me to. And the next morning, I get up. I didn't even get to shower. My breakfast was still sitting on the table. Um, Beds was stripped. Everything was packed up, ready to go. He's bathed. I have a video of him laying in the bed, like getting ready to nap after his bath. Lady comes in at around like 11:30, 11:35-ish, and says she's detaining my 40-year-old son. And her name was Melissa McLean, and they took my baby from the hospital at 4 days. There was no court order, no judge's signature. It was just that they said they were detaining my 40-year-old son. I had called my mom, frantic, crying, a sobbing mess, and the officer that was trying to console and calm me down, he was like, "Look, let me speak to your mom." And he told my mom that somebody should be giving her a call to come pick him up, and my mom never got that call. So we go to court November the 18th. They decide to detain Zeal still to hold him in custody, and they say that I was not following the plan and there were concerns for me taking him home, and so they decide to still hold him in custody. December 6th, we go back. Oh no, December 6th, I go to Elkhart probation to face that charge that I had. I had a battery resulting in bodily injury at the time, and I was sentenced to a year of probation. I wasn't even going to jail. I was to do anger management and therapy and things of that nature. And then December 8th, we go to court. They were scheduling my court dates close together. They did the same thing with my dispo. But for February 8th, I was told that it would be easier for me if I admitted the Chins hearing and to let them help me. So I was advised that by my attorney, Michelle Laux. She had said to admit the Chins. So I admitted the petition. I had got my own services in between that time. I was signed up with Real Services Here, which is a family development program. I had sought counseling. I had a physician as my primary care doctor, and as well as a person to prescribe me Latuda, so I could at least show them that I was getting back on medication. So they admitted him a Chins, and January 4th was my birthday. I had enrolled in school. And then around like January 18th, I had gotten a Section 8 voucher. The voucher was approved. February 23rd, I got a disposition hearing that was given the requirements of what it was going to take to get him back in the home. Still no case plan done at that time. March 1st, I signed my lease to my apartment through my Section 8 voucher. So we started having problems where me and DCS would get into situations. Everything started May, mid-May. I was continuously asking questions of what was it going to take to get my kid back in the home. By this time, I had housing. I had completed a parenting class with a 97%. I was in therapy. I was in classes. I was set to go to school in the fall because I was going to go in March, but I postponed it because we were told in court that the case wasn't going to be long. So they refused to even encourage reunification, and was refusing to ask me why. Refusing to tell me why they weren't going to reunify him in the house. They kept saying my mental health, but wouldn't give examples, and they said they were waiting for a psyche eval. So I would get frustrated. My kid would show up in dirty clothes, or he would be cold. He would always be sick. He had a respiratory therapist like clear him out like twice already. So I was very concerned. So me voicing my concerns and my grievances with DCS was being labeled as confrontational and aggressive. So I did the psych eval June, July. I thought I could be very honest. I felt that I was going to get the help that I needed. And through that correspondence with DCS, I made sure to keep everything through emails, because I learned from my mom, because I was in the system as a child, that it would be my word versus theirs. I even knew the recording laws in the state, so I had to record them. They would try to tell me that they couldn't give me CFTMs because I was recording, but I had to explain to them that the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals says I can record, and in Indiana, it's a one-party consent state. They were refusing to give me paperwork, so it just felt contentious. I wasn't trying to like be petty. I was operating from a place of fear. I was just trying to, get myself together, and I just didn't understand why I was being met with so much opposition from them, and it brought me in a state of paranoia. The list goes on and on. I found out when I was supposed to be going to parenting classes, initially through Center for Positive Change, that the DCS worker Elizabeth knew the therapist outside of work. So there were a lot of conflicts of interest. I was filing complaints with the regional manager around May. His name is William Horton. He said that he investigated and there was no wrongdoing. I had confronted Angel Owens, who works for the governor's office. She's a DCS liaison in Indianapolis in the governor's office. She said that there was no wrongdoing, and she concluded that investigation in July. I reached out to a state representative named Maureen Bauer. Comes to find out that she knows the foster parents that have my child and was recommending them to put my 9-week-old baby in daycare. I dig on Bridget Putney, the social worker who called on me. Comes to find out that her license was expired in August 5th of 2020, and that she used to work for DCS until May of 2019. So she worked from 2014 to 2019, and she was a family case manager. So that's how she was able to know the ins and outs and who to call. So, so we have now had a termination hearing. I lost my job and lost my place, and lost my mind as a result. I don't know. It's been a fight for 2 years. It got to a state where I got increasingly paranoid and just very anxious and worried.
Did you have a McDonald's?
Yes.
Leave it on the
Sorry. Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a McDonald's cup and leave it on my table?
Oh, did I leave it on your table? I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I was
That was my fault.
what the hell?
Okay. I'm sorry. I am so sorry about that. My fault. But I'm now in a homeless shelter. I'm on a list for housing. But I've pretty much kept paper trails since we started. Even emails of them falsifying court orders. Everything. Them refusing to move my visits. It was just a fight, and I felt like because I was a foster child, and because I had mental health, it was their word versus mine. So I had to go to extreme lengths to prove things. My public defender was not letting me submit evidence into the record. I had even put audio recordings on flash drives, couldn't introduce them into court. I even had them transcribed and typed, so we knew word for word different things. So I had to go to extreme lengths to cover things. I even went through their manual. Just felt desperate, and it just took me over the edge. So,
Well,
they
that's what they do. Okay. So you got a lot of stuff going on. You have violation of your rights. Okay. Your baby was medically kidnapped by the hospital. Then CPS came in, right? Because then they didn't even have a court order, so they kidnapped the baby.
No.
Then the state kidnapped the baby. So you have conspiracies there. You were in foster care. So you were already a target from the day they found out you were pregnant. They were just waiting. They were laying in wait. Okay.
They
There's
had me
no
in the back of the
law.
hallway.
Of course, there's no
They
law that says because you have mental issues, unless you are in a mental ward, that you have to take medicine. Okay. You have a lot of stuff going on. I do want to tell you, I do commend you. Everything.
thank you.
The only thing I would if I was on your case is I want you not to say one word to these. I also would have told you not to see their counselor.
Tiffany, we're losing you again.
What part did you miss?
All of it.
Yeah,
You were
you're
breaking
breaking
up
up real
bad.
bad.
You got
Oh,
started
I
talking
would have
about what you would tell her not to do, and then it
okay.
cut out.
Would have told you not to talk to them, and I would have told you to seek your own counselor outside of theirs because they have contracts with these people. They have contracts with the hospital. Everybody, they have contracts. But you did
Yep.
good.
I
You did do good.
Thank you. I had even looked up like the Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 7, Section 4, how they state that their obligation is to the courts and the public and not to the client. They're like the fox guard in the hen house. I had looked up, the Title 4E, how they get financial benefits and incentives, the Adoption Safe Families Act that Bill Clinton and Hillary had put into place. Like I did a lot of research. I looked at their contracts. I looked at the legal terms, Constitution, everything. I even went on Google Scholar. Like I've got case laws. Like I had to literally fight my own case. And I was telling them like, look, this is not right. I was just so mentally distraught and afraid to fight my case because I'm like, what if I lose? I wasn't in the mindset that I am now. Like I don't have nothing to lose at this point. You already took my kid. There's nothing more you can really do at this point. So I wasn't to that place yet. I was like, part of me was wanting to like fight back, but then I was like, but I'm making it harder for myself. And like my mom and I, we talked about this. She was like, when you use your mind, you're a force to be reckoned with, but they know how to get your heart because they couldn't beat your mind. So they had to use your heart, and they would use my child to get to me. There would be times where I was struggling to get to visits or couldn't make it to visits. And they put a policy in place to make me confirm 2 hours ahead of time. So if the visit was at 9:30, I had to be at the visit at 7:30. But they would add policies just for me in particular, not for anybody else. These weren't policies in their stuff, but it was for me. They said, so example, if I texted at 7:31, I'm going to make it to the visit. Oh, no visit today. You didn't confirm 2 hours. So I would have no visit with my child. I have pictures and videos of him with rashes on him. It got bad. And then I had a warrant for my arrest in Elkhart County. I had a warrant for my arrest for probation. I was putting a lot of money into my house and trying to take care of my kid, and I wasn't paying my fees to probation. So they had a show cause, and I was scared to go to court. I didn't go to court because I thought I was going to go to jail because I thought they were going to find me guilty of probation violation, and I was scared to lose my house and things. So I didn't go, and they had a warrant for my arrest. So then when I went into court for the termination hearing, or for to show up for a termination in January, I had gotten arrested after court. They had given, because I told them I needed an attorney and things like that. So they said, well, we'll come back in March. And I had gotten arrested right after that for that warrant for my arrest as well. And I had lost everything at that point. I was set to move out of my house February the 16th. I'm $3,000 in debt for the college I didn't get to complete. So yeah, it was a lot. And I felt like I couldn't trust any of my therapists. I had initially revoked a consent for them to get reports from these from my service providers, my therapists and things, because I felt like they were trying to get information and use things in court that was said in therapy. So I revoked their consents, and they had said they dropped a show cause after I had requested information from them, and I was ordered to re-sign the release. So that's when I put under duress, and they dropped another show cause yet again on me for that particular reason, because they wanted to get releases, but they were violating and overstepping their boundaries and getting releases to my records.
I think that is
So-
like one of the most, and that's what I said when I met you, like that alone right there, writing under duress, like for them to then show cause you, that's retaliatory as hell. However.com, like I wish more people would write that, because I don't think they understand that what these agencies are doing, like Tiffany said, is it's like when you're in the system and you grew up in the system, it's like they're watching you your entire freaking life. And I don't think you understand. You are not alone in any of this shit that you've been through.
Yes, ma'am.
I think the hardest thing to realize is your life isn't over. You're still here. You're still kicking it. You're still fighting. Like right now, you don't have him, but he's going to come back sooner or later. And I think you picking up your
Absolutely.
life and fighting the way you're fighting is something that, like I said, is inspirational as hell, because they tend to use mental health as their quote unquote determination for their bullshit. However, it's not even their sector. They can't practice medicine. They're not, they can't use the DSM-5. They can't say this stuff. And then when they come after, because I did read in your story too, like you're a victim of domestic violence,
and sexual assault.
Right. And so they have taken that and weaponized it against you. And the sad thing is, you're not the only one. And so by you even coming here sharing this story, like I said, is extremely inspirational, because you did everything they told you to do. It's like, and at the end of the day, they still do what they're going to do. But it's your courage to stand here and share your story and realize that, like, somebody could be watching this and be like, damn, I'm currently right now in this situation. How do I fix this? And I think it's a prime example of you can do everything they tell you to do, and you get the same outcome as if you were to do everything they told you not to do. And maybe I'm wrong, Tiffany, but like I've seen the same thing. They do what they want. And
well, here's the thing. It doesn't matter. This is what people don't understand. It doesn't matter if the child is under 5. You could literally kiss their ass and the judge's feet. And if that child is under 5 and it's not been abused, doesn't matter what you do. They're taking that baby. Okay?
Yep.
Now, when I had my CPS cases, what I told them, I'm not cooperating with you. You can kiss my ass. They used to be like, we're calling your parole officer. Well, I got tired of hearing that shit. I called my parole officer right there after that. I handed her the phone. And he said, I can't make her do anything other than what her parole papers say. Stop threatening her. Okay?
And that's and the,
yeah, I'm this person.
and even the judge, whenever they were complaining of, go ahead.
I just want to say this too. It does not matter what system it is. Child support, probation, parole, whatever they got out here, child support. The whole system is set up to make parents fail and people. Okay? The whole system. It's all a setup. It's all a game. And until you master the game, they will oppress people. And I'm glad you're speaking up. Like Amber said, you are not alone. Okay? There are many voices, and we all need to come together, because the more voices we have, the louder we are, the more they're going to back off. But go ahead, honey. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. No, I definitely agree with you. And the thing is like, even whenever they were complaining about me recording them, the judge even said on record, I can't make her stop recording. All I can do is ask. All I can do is ask her, because they had refused me a CFTM. And I was like, you do understand that a CFTM is part of your reasonable effort, which is the due the due process clause. And like, well, we are. I'm like, you're violating my rights. They're like, we're not violating your rights. We're trying to give you a CFTM. You just won't stop recording. I'm like, well, I'm exercising my constitutional rights to do so. So when they couldn't control the narrative and they couldn't have what they wanted, they started provoking and being disrespectful. And even then, I was cool. It was only up until the point where they like my disrespecting my mom, like they had said something out of the way to my mom, and I just went off. I was like, you don't talk to my mom like that, like you crazy. Like I got to cussing them out, and they were threatening to call the police on me. It's like, you need to get out, and we're gonna call the police. And then when they dropped that show when they dropped that show cause order on me, we went to the show cause hearing, and a woman named Deborah Stanley, she's with Amani Unidad here in South Bend. She had testified they were instigating and provoking this girl because they were trying to lie and say she stalked the office and she didn't want to leave. And so when I put Deborah, I'm glad Deborah came, because this is when, mind you, this show cause was about me rescinding my releases for information. So they're testifying to things that have no merit in this hearing. Exactly right. So Deborah gets on the stand. Well, initially, prosecutor, the DCS attorney, got an attitude and was like, so who are you? No, she said, what are you doing? She said, I'm testifying for her. She's like, were you there? She was like, yeah. She's like, oh. She fixed her attitude real quick. So she was like, no, they were instigating. They were snorting and coughing when she was talking, and she asked them to be quiet, and they were just messing with her. She felt disrespected. She even testified that the security guards were running up on me, telling me to get my motherfucking black ass out, and all this stuff was disrespectful. So I snapped my head around like, who are you talking? So she was like, they were instigating and antagonizing her. So the judge had no choice but to say, I can't hold her in contempt. Just sign the releases they ask you to. And she asked me to sign the releases. And that's when I signed in the court under duress. After court, I signed under duress. But then Deborah Stanley was getting calls from she said from DCS in particular. She didn't give me a name, but she was saying that they were telling her that she needed to back off, that she needed to get out the way. And then that's another thing. Anybody who spoke highly of me in my case was no longer on it. Lifeline counselors, of course not, were gone. So because it didn't perpetuate the narrative that they wanted. And that was the thing. This was because from how we looked at it was they were hoping, because my mom had a termination, because his dad didn't know anything about CPS, and because he was in Illinois, and they thought I was going to jail. If they took this baby from me, I was either going to go off the deep end and kill myself because they knew I had suicide attempts, or I was going to go to jail and nobody could get this baby, and it was a free baby. They were even scheduling court dates, like I said, close together. December 6th, I got Elkhart Court. They're thinking I'm going to go to jail, so I won't show up for December 8th. February 23rd, the day of my dispo hearing, if it wasn't for my victim assistance lady in Fort Wayne, I would have had to testify in my rapist trial. So they were trying to get me to where I couldn't be in two places at once, or where I wouldn't show up to court. So they were trying to be slick. So whenever that didn't work, they were like, well, the only thing we can do is try to make her crazy. And that's what they did. CASA was up DCS's ass like no other. Excuse my language. Sorry, I didn't know if we was allowed cursing here. Excuse me. They was up there behind like no other. She did not do any investigation, any independent nothing, which I expected this. It's not like I'm shocked but at the time I thought if I did the right thing, I wanted my son I made mistakes prior to him getting there, and I owned all of them. Whatever they wanted to know, I was dealing with emotions, and I felt guilty for the things that I did. I felt bad for lying to where I needed to get to, and I really wanted to work on my issues to be a good parent to my son. And I was like, if I tell the truth, it's going to be okay, until it wasn't. So I didn't have bad intentions. And I was like, look, I stood on everything that I said I was going to do, everything in that report, that they said that I was open to assistance in getting a car, getting an education, getting a place. I did all those things except for the car. I had got my learner's permit. I did everything on my own. The only thing DCS ever did for me that in that entire case up until termination was visitation, psych eval, and a parenting class. They made it like they helped towards the end of the case to write all these damn referrals that they didn't write before, so it could look like that they were trying to help me the entire time. They played it accurately. They played their cards the entire time, because before the termination, they were very willful and very combative and very resistant to helping. The furniture that was in my house, I paid for. Everything I did on my own. So after the termination, they were open and writing all these referrals and doing all these things. So I had no chance of appealing. So my
Well,
appeal would look weak.
well, first of all, just so you know, the courts and CPS in Frederick County, Virginia think I'm belligerent, and I am. Okay, I can also be a little sociopathic at times when you come for my family, and I have no problems
Absolutely.
admitting that. I also have no problems telling a judge that I will leave their courtroom and go call a civil rights attorney. I've had cases drop because I've spoken up and been like, don't make me leave your courtroom and go call a civil rights attorney. And I've had cases
Yep.
drop because what people don't understand, and I say this all the time, from a judge, a prosecutor, to a bum in the street, we all have the same rights, right? We all bleed the same. We all need to eat, breathe, and drink to live. You are no better than anybody else. The Declaration of Independence did not say, because you got a black robe on and you went to law school, that you were better than me. No, that is not what it says. It says, and I even say women, men and women are all created equal. We are all equal under the law. So I am aggressive, and I'm very blunt about it, because I don't like when people's rights get violated. And as far as them talking to you that way, oh no, baby, because I've been like, who the fuck do you think you are talking to? Call the police. Get them here. Get them here. Bring on the police. You better bring the National Guard with you.
See, and to answer your question, Kelsey, you're talking about the parenting classes. Yes, I did complete the parenting classes and I graduated with a 97%. Yes, I did complete the classes. However, when they did the psychological evaluation, they had said that I had unrealistic expectations of a child. They had asked me, how do I discipline a grade school child and a teenager? Now, mind you, I just said I would first assess the situation and see, like, pretty much my answer was not that I'm going to beat the hell out of my kids. Like, I would ask, like, what's going on and try to process with my children, like, to be a positive parent. I didn't believe in physically hitting my kids or whatever. And he wasn't specific. I was like, well, it depends on what he did. Like, what did he do? So the question was loaded. So he said, well, she doesn't have realistic expectations. He asked me, what would my day with my son look like? And I was like, I mean, you wake up with him, feed him, take him to the play with him. Like, he wasn't specific. So she has unrealistic expectations of a child. I feel another parenting class would be important, but they had testified at the time that no other parenting class was needed. Any issues that I had was never really with my child. It was really with DCS. I never lashed out at my baby, never yelled at him. I was very active with him. They were a little nitpicky at times, like she needs help doing simple tasks like getting a glass of water. So if my son my baby went from being able to sleep on his own to wanting me to hold him sleeping. So if he's sleeping, I'm not going to get up and wake him. So at the time, I'd be like, can I get a glass of water? Because they would have mugs in their cabinet. I was like, can I get a glass of water or something to drink? Because I would forget to pack a water bottle for me. I would just pack all of his stuff or whatever. And that was what they was tripping about. That, if I was holding him sleep, because any little movement, he'd wake up. So I want him to stay asleep. So if I asked him to grab something for me while I was sitting with him sleeping, she needs help doing simple tasks. That's what that was. But any other time in CFTM's visits were going well. There were no concerns. But when we get into court, there's all these issues. So they used the fact that I didn't take another parenting class, but they had testified that it wasn't necessary. Even though the psych eval had recommended it, they said, well, she's already graduated. There's no problems with her and the kids. So I don't think so. But they even testified in court also that when I would have visits in my house, I was more independent because I could put him in his bouncer and he would be fine. Or I'd lay him down in his bed and he'd sleep and nap. So I was more independent at home because there was more access to furniture and things for him to be able to do stuff while I could carry out tasks. I was even buying organic vegetables and pureeing his food at home. So I was making homemade baby food for my son as well. So whenever he started eating solid foods, I would, prepare his food and bring it to visits. So Zeal was always straight. So I always took really good care of him. It was just my issue was with DCS because we weren't understanding like what's keeping him. My mom would come to meetings and she would be very frustrated, but they never tried to include her. They had asked if my aunt could take him and she said she could not. My sister is still kind of young. I'm the oldest of 4 kids, so nobody could take him. My grandparents were too old. They said they were too old to raise kids because at the time, my mom tried to send us with our grandparents and my grandpa was like, no, we're too old. So there was no way I could get him.
Your little buddy down here, Spanny, who's slowly becoming a fan of mine. I just want to say, I do not trust our government. Okay, so I didn't spoil the government. I don't think anybody should trust the government. They put their nose in places it doesn't belong. And the Supreme Court of the United States has already said that parents have the right to care, custody, control, and discipline, education, all of that. Not a CPS worker, not a judge, not Joe Blow down the street who wants to poke his nose in your business, okay? Because I'm going to tell you, I've been in plenty of grocery stores and I'm old school. I will whip my grandkids' asses if they get out of line, and I dare CPS to show up in my property. Because I'm going to tell you, I already told one I'd blow a hole right through her ass bigger than the Grand Canyon. I've already told her. And that's why I'm saying,
Chelsea, I do not have enough bail money to send Tiffany to California. I'm sorry, dear.
I mean, I don't have a gun, and I was on parole at the time. This was 20 years ago, but they knew better. I dare you. I dare you. They call me on the phone now, and I'm like, don't step on my property. But hey, since you want to be up in my business, I need $1,600 a month for all my bills. I need $400 a month of food stamps. I need Medicaid. And if you're not going to give me that, leave me alone. That's just how it is. Nobody has the right to tell you how to raise your child. Nobody has the right to tell you how to discipline your child. And nobody has the right to tell you that you have to take all these classes. This is all money for them, not you.
Hold on. What pisses me off out of all this fucking, excuse my language, shit is the misuse of the mental health system, or the misuse and the oppression that they're putting on people who have survived domestic violence, sexual assault, and they have these quote unquote resources, but they don't utilize them. So they weaponize the safety plans, weaponize this, put people into paranoid state because they're like, oh, if we poke the bear and we get her all pissed off, then, maybe she'll lash out and we'll get the exact response we want. But the thing is, most of us and anybody that's been a victim of domestic violence or sexual assault, because I'm one too, by the way. So that's what I said. We get it. You're not alone. And just going through your documents, yeah, I'm fucking proud of you for literally putting under duress. I'm proud of you for going back and trying to go back to school. If you need to repeal your 3,000 debt, you can always do a hardship and restart your classes, which is always an option. Don't give up on your education. Don't give up on anything, because we need more people like you to sit there and then go back in the system and go, guess what? You guys thought you got me. I'm now a part of the system, and now I'm your social worker, and we're done. Take this as your platform to literally go in and help all of these other families, because the system, the manuals, under the Title IV, Title V funding, all the bullshit, the legal policies and manuals. It's not just constitutional rights, it's your human rights are being violated. Your crime victim rights are being violated. Did they ever take that into consideration? No. They wanted to paint it out that somebody was the villain in this story, and it's not working. And you're here. So it's keep doing it, and
I actually happen to agree with Apache. I think America has spoiled our government.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because we have not standed up for our own rights. So
What blows me away the most is that when you rescinded your signature, they actually violated one of your inalienable rights, and that is a lifetime inalienable right. So they can't tell you when you can rescind or not. It is not their option. Your rights can never be taken away from you. Okay, you can't transfer them. You can't give them to somebody else. They can't do any of that.
Yep. Yep. And you know, like even like the thing that made it even harder for me was I knew that something was wrong and I was trying to tell people, and like I it got so bad because it was like they were gaslighting me. So it made me like so confused, and I couldn't differentiate what was real and what wasn't. So everything felt like sabotage and an attack, and I couldn't turn it off. Like my anxiety was just so high. I had to literally like take anxiety meds right before meeting with them. And my heart would still be, I would be sweating bullets. Like I would be edgy. I would be so uncomfortable. And even when I stopped taking medication, I'd be sitting in the courtroom waiting for them to call me up in the court. And my heart is like on 10. And I would have to literally close my eyes for a second and pray and like breathe, because I would just be so triggered to be in there. Like the feeling of fear, like it was so awful.
It's
And like
it's like that feeling when you go in there and you're like, what the hell are they gonna fucking pull now? Like, what are they gonna say now? And you're like, and you just close your eyes and you pray, because you just know that you want it to like not like it's anxiety, but it's PTSD and it's a mass amount of things. And like, I just want to hug the shit out of you right now, because like
the
you're my
first
for like standing.
the first couple days was awful. The first couple days after they took him was awful. And like I could describe it 10 million ways and it just would never register. It literally felt like they kidnapped me and cut me open and ripped my baby and stole him. It's something like, even when I would tell, like when I told people at the shelter like what happened, they immediately asked me, what type of drugs did you do? It has to be more to it. But when they read it, they're like, oh my God, this is like a Lifetime movie. People couldn't believe it because it's something that you hear in a Lifetime movie, like a thriller, like somebody then kidnapped your child and you're going through this lengthy DCS battle. That's something that's Lifetime movie worthy. It was awful. It felt like they cut me open, stole my child, and are just telling me to get over it. Like the first couple days I called his dad.
That is
Yeah.
exactly what
Like,
happened. You don't need to get over that. No, you don't get over that.
It felt like I was an unknowing, unwilling surrogate. That's exactly how it feels. Like I called his dad all throughout the hospital. He knew everything that was going on with Zeal. He saw Zeal. Like we did not see this coming. And the first couple of days, I would talk to his dad on the phone for hours and just cry. And I was scared. Like, what if they're mean to him? I would hear stories of kids getting hurt all the time. I'm like, he can't talk. Like he can't fight back. The feeling of losing him terrified me. It was so awful. It was the most awful thing I'd ever experienced.
And then you being in foster care as it was, you know from experience how bad they can be.
And it was so frustrating because it felt like nobody believed me. They didn't believe me as a child. Now they're not believing me as an adult. And it felt like I always had to lose. Like there was an instance when I was
They pretty much
alienate
the parent.
Yeah, like when I was in foster care, we had this foster mom that was very abusive to me and my siblings. And I was talking to DCS workers about it. So one night we leave the gym because she was a professional aerobics teacher among 10 other jobs on top of getting money for 12 kids in a home. She had all the big kids in the car with me and had all the babies and my brother and my little sister in the other car. And she had the big kids beat me up and jump me in her Suburban and beat me up in the car to get me to be quiet. And she's like, that'll teach you to talk. They were beating me for a good few minutes. I had a teenage boy punching me in the face. I had a girl grab me by my head. They were slamming my head against the window. If they would have slammed it any harder, it would have broke. They were beating me up in the car. on her orders. And so I busted windows out of her car. Like, I always had to act out to get people to listen. So after all of this happened, after I get arrested and go to juvie, right? They then start investigating her. So that was the first thing. And then as soon as we've been telling them that this caseworker is garbage in Arkansas, we lose our rights, then they want to fire her. So it just felt like I always had to lose something for people to take me serious. I even said in court, like, I have told you guys the truth and it cost me everything. But why is it whenever I tell you the truth, you believe me when I tell you I messed up? But whenever I'm testifying here in court and I'm under oath, at that, I could go to jail for lying to you guys. I'm a liar. Like, even whenever I presented the order, before I even put the order in the record, that they falsified a court order to take my visits and said that my visits were suspended when they weren't yet. I testified to that, and the prosecuting attorney was like, she was like, so it's your testimony that the Heidi Trineri, the supervisor, had falsified a court order. I said, yes, ma'am, it is. She said, well, do you have a proof of that? And in my mind, I'm just like, well, you guys didn't have proof of shit else. And you know what I mean? So it's like, no,
Yeah, right.
because at the time I was in camp. I was at camp. But the next hearing, I brought that court order in. And the judge, the look on her face, she looked at me like, you bitch. Like, I brought it in the record. I was like, here you go. Like, because I made copies of everything that I was doing. And she looked at me like, with her mask over her face, like, you bitch. Like, so, and didn't bat an eyelash, didn't issue sanctions, nothing. And that's actually what they're supposed to be doing. You just falsified a court order and impersonated a judicial officer. So, but that was supposed to be one of the penalties. And I asked my public defender at the time, I was like, so what are we going to do about her falsifying a court order? Well, I don't know. What do you want me to do?
Let me ask you, did they give you the bullshit of like, we don't know how to deal with this? Like, you can throw cause and here you go. Let's get a gatekeeper order. And like, and you're like asking your attorney, can you file this? Can you do something?
Can you file a motion to issue sanctions and a rule to show cause? And she's like, no. Well, what do you want me to do? This woman was such an idiot. She couldn't even keep up with the fact that, hadn't had the termination yet.
That you knew what was going on, that you were actually aware and educated. And so you're having to educate your counsel. Yeah.
And even with that, she when I was telling them in the beginning that they violated my rights, she said, stop that. You're going to piss them off and they're not going to give him back.
Yeah.
Yeah. She said, stop it. Stop saying they're violating your rights. You're going to piss them off and they're not going to give him back.
Who gives a shit?
Who cares? Go violate that bitch's rights. Go violate their rights and see what happens. Go do it. Go do it. Because you're the one that's going to make me go out here to the courthouse and show my ass. I'm telling you.
Let me go commit perjury on the stand. Let me falsify a court order saying that Zeal is to be returned to me immediately and see if I'm not in an orange jumpsuit and in a mugshot or blue jumpsuit because of St. Joseph County. Let me not be on Busted, you know. Let me do that and I'll be on Busted. Mugshot clear as day on Facebook. Falsifying court orders.
But
they
don't hold them accountable for it.
Of course not. And that's why I had to keep trails.
That's the problem.
Oh, and it's okay. She can't drive to Indiana. We're good.
I can't.
You're right. I can't leave. They're lucky, but that's the problem, right? They want everybody who's got a CPS case. You need to take accountability for your actions. And my response is, then you need to take accountability for what you're doing.
No case plans. We still don't have a case plan signed. It was completed, but it wasn't signed. No safety plan signed. Oh, of course not. But I'm just saying.
It's voluntary.
And then their favorite is that Zeal is special needs. But I have Because I was reading a thing called privatization of child services. And privatization, that term was made really, really popular in the 1930s at the time of World War II when Adolf Hitler was trying to privatize, because privatization means like services for profit. And that's how it started. They started private. I have a whole article of stuff like that upstairs in my room. I've got a book on judicial efforts. Reasonable efforts, a judge book done by Leonard Edwards or something. I've got so many PDF files and I was reading through this stuff and hitting them with it and trying to get them to get right. And they was like, nah, she's doing too much. And that's when they would hit me with that. But yeah, I've been studying this stuff for a long time and it just, I had to stop because it was just mentally making me nuts.
Oh,
Like,
update
Go
on
ahead,
West
Fanny.
Virginia. Schaefer loves me so much that he's now having all people in his courtroom sign a non-disclosure agreement that you can't talk about the case out of court.
That's like a gag order, isn't it?
He can't legally do that. Fuck him.
No,
Schaefer. Yeah, you can't
that's
do
like a gag order.
it. Exactly. It goes against the First Amendment. But I do
Yep,
want to say
and
this.
it's mostly due to me.
Right. Yeah, right, Spanny. What is he gonna go on to say, Spanny? Go ahead. Go ahead. But anyway, I tell people this all the time. The police can disarm somebody with a weapon. Okay? You can't disarm somebody who has knowledge. Okay? You just can't. You can't undo what you know. Right? I'm not saying people
Yeah.
don't change. That's not what I'm saying. But knowledge is power. And their problem is people like us are beating their asses in the courtroom. Okay? Because lawyers won't do it. Their thing is the state is my first client. They'll never tell you that, but that's what it is.
Mhm.
You're the
This is when I go,
secondary.
we're coming for you, Indiana. No.
I'm sorry?
This is when I go, we're coming for you, Indiana.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Because we've like I said, I've kept a paper trail since we started, them saying that they don't help with housing, but they'll pay deposits, all kinds of stuff. Oh yeah, I had asked I wanted some housing because I didn't like to be around gun violence because I was very well aware of how South Bend was. We were talking home ownership, like, going to college, getting off government assistance. Like, what mentally ill person has that type of conversation? So I was telling them, like, because there's programs here in South Bend that they help with home ownership for low income families, about how to help people with credit, different things like that. So I was trying to utilize a lot of these resources I found on my own. So we were having some serious conversations and they just were not trying to be helpful. They were saying, we don't have to follow our manual and it varies from county to county. And I already knew, but see, I would sit there and record these conversations and just be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. They were so invested in why I was on disability. They terminated my rights saying I can't hold employment, which is a violation of the ADA because legally I'm disabled. If I wanted to be a lazy bum government collecting person, I would have just not worked. I want to work. I want to have my own money. I want to be able to give my son a future and for him to be stable and things like that. So
I do have a question for you. What were you going
Yes,
to
ma'am.
school for?
Cosmetology.
Amazing.
Yeah, I love to empower people and I like people to see the beauty within themselves. And I notice a lot of hairstylists, they overcharge for their prices. So I wanted to have a beauty salon that helped like single moms, college students in particular, and women with children, so they could have some help to get their hair done for a good price, and actually take care of their hair, like wash and condition their hair, put a treatment in their hair, all for the same price instead of just washing, conditioning, and braiding. Like, they charge rent money for braids nowadays, and it's ridiculous. And I didn't want to do that. And I like to empower and help people see the beauty within themselves. I also wanted to dabble in fashion in the future, but they didn't have a fashion school here because I wanted to help my community. Like, I wanted to have a boutique where people could take vouchers and get clothes, brand new clothes that were underprivileged and things. But now I'm really starting to get into the law. Like, I really want to have an advocacy clinic. Me and my mom have been talking about that. And I think that's where God has directed my path, is to start working with families that are going through the same things that I'm going through. So I've kind of changed my career direction.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit something that Spanny and Tiff know. When my kids were actually illegally taken, they're victims of the system. So they actually opened a company called Valkyrie Bell. It's a makeup company. And
Really?
any help would be appreciated, because I'm not girly,
Absolutely.
but it's a way for other people to tell their stories and basically empower other victims of the system. You know, harness your inner rebel and unleash your inner warrior is their slogan.
Oh, I like that.
And so it's kind of their way, and has always been their dream to give back to other kids. And so
Absolutely.
I think you should continue to pursue your dream, because what is kind of interesting is the fact that sometimes you just have to have the like courage to believe in your dreams, you know, like Walt Disney and all of them. And I still get made fun
Yeah.
of being a Disney fanatic, but it's
Me
like you
too.
have to have the courage to believe. You know, you have to have a little bit of pixie dust and some magic and, you know, a little bit of this or that, because what most people don't understand is you've inspired so many people already. I mean, by sharing your story and being able to take that and give back in that health and beauty, and then take it from the advocacy, you know, maybe life coaching is something for you too, you know, walking somebody
Yeah.
through that. But like, I encourage you, go back to school, finish what you started, because I think what you're going to see is, as you continue to empower other people by sharing your story
Sure.
is going, somebody's going to be like, "Oh my God, I just went through that. Oh my God, this," like, you know,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I like, and seriously, keep doing it, because it's
Yes,
people
ma'am.
like you that this country needs to be able to say, you know what, you guys thought you kicked me down. Hey, guess what? I'm still standing. And I don't stand
Yes, ma'am.
alone. I stand with people beside and front and behind, you know? And
Yes, ma'am.
so
There are people, a couple people here in the shelter that are dealing with that, and I give them a little bit of information, and because there are still some people who are dealing with DCS that are threatening and coercing them, and I'm trying to explain to them the same thing. But of course, you know, they have to. I tell them what they need to do and kind of inform them, but they have to kind of take the advice, and I explain to them and show them why I say what I say. So I do try to help people that are dealing with DCS now, because there are a couple people here that are dealing with cases like mine, that needed help and things, and this system is taking advantage. So I try to give them as many resources and help. But as for my beauty thing, I wanted to have my salon named after my son, and it was going to be called Beauty and Zeal, because Zeal's
that is,
name means joy. So that's the name of my son. His name is Zeal Amir, so Zeal. So it means joyful, and his middle name Amir means prince or ruler. So yeah, that's my kiddo. So I wanted to name my salon Beauty and Zeal after him.
I can see you opening it, you know, and I can see a lot of assistants, you know, all coming together, because I think, you know,
Absolutely.
there needs to be that aspect, potentially a nonprofit for you, because I think there's people all across this country that need help. And it's like,
Yes, ma'am.
we need to start taking our resources back, because clearly they're misallocating and misusing the funds. So we kind of need to armor up and
Absolutely.
kind of, you know, maneuver the system.
Absolutely.
So why not give it to people that are actually going to, like, how do I say this? I don't know, help somebody who's homeless on the street, or help a domestic violence victim.
So Amber,
Oh,
is
go ahead,
there a
Fanny.
couple things you can help? Is there a couple things you can help her? Tiffany, you just vanished.
She just bounced out.
Yeah, is there a couple of things you can help her file to start this process?
There's some things. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going through all of this. I mean, I think in the end of the day, this is going to be a team effort. I think this is something that I'd like to get Justice Jess involved in on, because I mean, her story is so impactful, and it's like, you can take one person and you can look at every case right now currently across this country. The similarities alone make me sick, you know.
I tried to get a hold of Justice Jess and I couldn't get a hold of her.
Okay. Yeah, because I think it makes me sick because it's like you're using mental health, you're using victims of crime, you're using domestic violence. And it's like, we didn't ask for this shit. Nobody asked to be in this position. But at the end of the day, we're the ones having to stand. So I think, getting your story on paper, like getting it out, I would like to be able to do that. I also would like to go through stuff because, I'd like to see you get back into school. That's something too that I can help with, and I know Spanny's got her forte, and I think Tiffany, out of anything, could probably guide the best way, when it comes to CPS. I want to see like you continue to grow, and it's like I said, inspiring and kind of exciting watching, and that's, I think, why we all are here. We didn't ask for this, but we're all here.
Absolutely. And I've already filed a release to get my medical records.
Okay.
So we can go through that as well. Like I said, I was not evaluated by a physician or psychiatrist. So there was they didn't evaluate me. They just proceeded to call DCS. It was social workers and nurses complaining of concerns. No physician, no psychiatrist. It was just straight them. So I also have filed a release, I've signed a release for my medical records to get those as well. So once I have those, I can scan those. And I told Spanny I was going to send those to her. Everything that I have, you guys can have it.
Okay.
So whatever you need me to do, I'm already on board.
I just want to follow up with what Amber said. I want you to stay in school, get your cosmetology degree, but do that on the side, because I truly believe that you should become a public speaker and an advocate.
Yes, ma'am.
And I want to talk to Kevin and Spanny's little friend. You're right. You do need a backbone. And I have a backbone verbally, right? Spanny too has a verbal backbone, but Amber's backbone is not verbal. Hers is writing petitions. No, I'm serious, because I'm going to tell you, I can't. I mean, and my whole demeanor from my head, this is who I am. This is who I am with my
Tiffany, move your phone again. You're breaking up.
She's got to move.
Tiffany, move your phone again. You're breaking up again.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And that backbone is different, right? It doesn't always have to be verbal. I am who I am. I'm not going to change. I've been this way since I was 13. Okay, 13, that's a long time. I'll be 54. And people are fed up with getting their rights violated. And I do believe that change is coming. Whether we have to shove it down their throat, I'm going to do what Medea says. You can do it voluntarily or involuntarily. You pick your choice. You pick your poison. Because we're coming. And I do appreciate you sharing your story on our channel today. Oh, and there's something else I want to talk about. I heard, saw in the comments, Spanny, somebody said, take the wicked out. No, we're not taking out the wicked, because what we deal with on a daily basis is wicked. And we are the warriors on the front lines. We are wicked warriors. That's what it means. We are fighting the wicked, and we're not going to stop.
Yep.
And Kevin, hold on. Kevin said up here somewhere in the comments that he has a backbone. I can speak when I want to, but
no. I wasn't saying that he didn't. I wasn't saying that he didn't.
Backbone.
Oh no, he's the one that I'll call and be like,
well, somebody said it.
I said backbone.
No, all I was saying was I was agreeing with them. I was agreeing with them. You just have to find your backbone. Mine is verbal. Spanny's is verbal. You know what I'm saying?
Investigating.
Spanny don't care.
Mine is in legal manuals and policies.
That's mine too. I'm very good at investigating. If I want some information, I'm gonna get it. You gonna tell me something?
We don't get Josh involved.
I'm not allowed.
And I would like for Kevin
I'm a
to
blank
come
officer.
on. I would like for Kevin to come on, Spanny. So you talk to Kevin and see if we can get him on. No, we don't.
I
don't
love
know.
Kevin. I do. Kevin
message
can
me
come
and we'll
on.
get
He
you on
just
next
knows.
week.
Kevin is
Do
my
what?
Kevin,
go-to
message
guy for
me
federal
on Facebook.
grievances. By the way, he's the one I go to for federal grievances.
Oh yeah. See.
So we need to have him on because
Yeah.
technically her rights have been violated. The father's rights were violated because they didn't even contact him. Who cares if he had a paternity test, right? The baby's
That was
rights have been violated.
Oh, on
They
that
were-
note, Tiffany, they refused to on Kelsey, my other client, they refused to actually do a paternity test for the child, and they're terminating his rights. And they're saying that he's not the father of the child, even though he is.
How can you? Okay, make sense, Fanny. How can you terminate the rights of a parent that's not a parent?
I'm trying to figure out how he's not the parent when they refuse to even paternity test him, even though he is the parent.
Make it make sense.
It don't. It's California.
Well, see, like even in our case, like when we were getting things done, they were telling, like she said, you got a lot of people backing you with a lot of money. Take advantage of it. But when I'm asking them for help and things like that, they're not doing anything. They wanted us to take a DNA test. So the DNA test was 99.9. Like this is Burgess's child. Like this is his kiddo. But they wanted him to pay a $75 affidavit or to pay for him to get put on the birth certificate. But at the end of the day, he was like, with all the financial, like I can't afford that. I've got stuff going on up in Chicago. I've got obligations there as well. And why can't they pay for it? And they were like, so how are we going to proceed? Are we going to pay for it? Like they could have paid for it, but they're like, well, paternity wasn't established, even though the DNA test said that he was his dad, but they wanted to get the paternity affidavit done and for him to get on the birth certificate. But the city county building said that was going to cost $75 to get the affidavit and put him on the birth certificate. And he was just like, we don't have the money for that. And in our mind, we were like, y'all wanted this. Like he knows it's his. I know it's his. You didn't give us a chance to do anything. You took him before we could get anything done. So you guys can pay for it. They didn't want to do that. And then they used that against us, talking about, that we didn't establish paternity for Zeal, even though the DNA test was completed. So she goes from telling us that we have people with a lot of money that can help us to not trying to help us at all until the end of the case to make it like they did something.
Amber, I was trying to get him on next Sunday because it has more time.
I mean, I just figured
Where are you going now?
Well, I'm in right now. Hello.
Hi. How are you?
We want you to come on next weekend, next Sunday.
That'll work.
All right, so we'll get a game plan and talk about what we want to talk about. And I wasn't saying that you said the backbone. I just saw your comments and the other guys and just combined them together.
No, I understand that.
But that's cool. I'm glad you're on. Well,
Yeah, next Sunday.
We're
Next
an hour
Sunday.
and 7 minutes.
Do you want to?
Okay, that's great. I can do the constitutional part, Amber. But the other stuff that Spanny's doing and working on, I have zero. You see that, right? 00 knowledge about her stuff. Okay, I can't do Spanny's job. Absolutely not. I'm so glad Spanny does that.
Yeah, I can't
even do yours either. So you see that 00s? That's for your stuff too. 00s.
Kevin, I muted you because there was a lot of background noise in your car. So Carlios is another one of my friends, and he's making a good point. CPS is kind of needed in certain circumstances.
Yeah, right. In intimate or extreme cases, I do agree with that. The problem is not every case is imminent danger. Not every case. In fact, if you look at the statistics show that 85% of calls are not warranted, but 85% of those kids are removed from the home and adopted out.
Yep.
They also
As you
said that
other cases involving the government does more harm than good. We walk a very fine line in making those kind of decisions. It requires consultations.
they say that 85% of cases are neglect, only 15% are child abuse, and 66% of DCS cases are because of poverty. Because of 65% of 85% of neglect cases are to do with the inability to have resources or to be able to take care of your children, and that is caused by poverty. Okay. See, because if you look,
but they
if you're
can't take your kids. They can't take your kids because you're poor.
Because you're poor. Exactly. I have a whole study also that was done, I believe, by Stanford or Cambridge. It's one of the two, and it's a whole study on the harm of child removal. And it says that even kids who have been abused by their parents prefer to stay with their parents than to be in foster care. So I have a whole, I'm gonna send them to Spanny. I'm gonna send you all of the studies that I have on the harm of child abuse, the secret foster care system, privatization of DCS, the reasonable efforts manual. I believe this was in the state of California because that's where Judge Leonard Edwards is. You said somebody who's dealing with a case in California. There is a reasonable efforts book that I have. I have 158 case laws. I've got so much stuff I could scan and send to Spanny. She gave me her email to put in a file. So
you can send it to me too, because I got like a whole file cabinet full of stuff.
Absolutely, and I'll happily send it. Of course.
I mean, I just want to hug you. Like your amount of research like this, I love that. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Because you're solving.
And I want you to come back on the show too.
I definitely will. I'll definitely come back on the show. I'll be here every week if you want me to.
Yes, you could.
I think so.
We want you to come back on because you do know. You know the case laws. You got case laws. You can help other people. And if this is a way of getting your name out there, this is perfect. And then people, because before I started doing this, you had to know somebody that knew me or my kids or knew of me, or you know what I'm saying? I mean, you just couldn't call me and be like, hey, I hear you're an advocate. Because my first question is,
I get clients every day. I don't advertise. I get clients every day. I get advocates that actually pass the clients constantly.
Yes, ma'am. Like I said, I'll send some documents through, and I'll provide you everything I got because I've got tons of stuff, files of stuff. So,
Spanny, I want to end the show and stay on. Stay on.
Our new email address.
I'm going to give her all that.
Yep, I got it.
When we end the show.
I was just going to say it. Wicked Warriors at Proton Mail.
At proton.me. I'll put it in the comments.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's because we just need a new email address for that. Or everything comes to mine, and my email gets bombarded, and then Gmail gets mad at me, and yeah.
So wickedwarriors.proton.me.
No,
not dot at.
Oh,
I'll have to add it in the
at proton.me. Okay. Got it. Let me see. Oh, okay. Yep, Wicked Warriors at proton.me. Got it. Got it marked down.
All right, well, stay on. Let's don't get off when we get on.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Spanny, you can end at any time, and then we'll just stay on for a few minutes.
The last couple comments. Apache Snipes, I think we're going to have you on the next show next week.
I don't know.
Yeah, they both have some really good comments. But so we're going to wrap it up for the day. And we will see everybody next Sunday. Sorry. I'm just trying to read and type
That's okay.
or talk. Thank you everybody for being here, and please like and share this. And
Thanks for having me.
Sorry.
It's my first one.